Sorry I haven't been around.
Hello, George.
Happy Valentine's Day. Happy day of unconditional love. And happy day of love. I hope you all remember to love yourselves today first.
I love that day of unconditional love. I heard Happy Singles Day too. SAD, Singles Day, but I don't know about that one. Yeah, it's today. Gracie says, Merry Singles Day, everybody. Good point, Gracie. Celebrating Valentine's Day.
What's that? Happy Singles Day, did you say?
Yeah. If you're single, love yourself. If you're with somebody else, love yourself. Then love them. That's right. Gracie says you can't love somebody else without loving yourself. That's what RuPaul says. All right. I have coffee. I have the reading.
Gracie is 100% right.
I need you to put these on, please.
Dan's the most extreme taxi driver.
Yeah. Oh, is he driving a taxi? No wonder I hear all those explosions over there. I got you, Holmes.
Put it in.
I'm putting it in. You got it.
I can put the headphones on after this match.
No problem. Thanks, dude.
If you can hear me, can you somebody flash mics or say something? It's just that I'm having poor connection.
I can hear you. You
great.
sound great, Adriana.
Great.
No problem.
Perfect. It's just that my internet keeps switching from what Wi-Fi, so I didn't get like you're talking a moment ago. Dr. Natalie, did you hear what I said in a moment ago? Were you, your birthday was yesterday?
Yes, it was.
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday.
All right, I'm going to sing you my birthday song. You ready?
Yes.
This is my birthday song. It isn't very long.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
That's the whole deal. But happy birthday to you. It's wonderful. What are you, like 35, 36 now?
Oh, go lower. I am 21 today.
Yes, you
again,
are.
for the fourth time?
You know that my dad always said that? He goes,
That's
I'm
awesome.
29 again, until I turned 29, and then someone asked me how old my dad is. I was like, 29. Oh, wait. No, he's not.
My mom is claiming a younger age than mine, so she's actually gone into negative space.
Yes.
I now identify as a 21-year-old.
Forever.
I demand to be identified.
That's funny stuff.
Well, happy Valentine's Day for all of you up there. Here in Central America, and I guess Latin America, we celebrate this day in September. And it is called Love and Friendship Day. And it is in September, but we joined you in this celebration as well. And I'm really thrilled to have this kind of moments with all of you, because it's really like a celebration of love. That is what we have been learning with this Course in Miracles. So I appreciate you. And Dr. Natalie, have a wonderful week full of surprises, because you get to celebrate your birthday not only on the day, but the week. So
thank you.
A wonderful week. And Steph, Lee, yesterday, I don't know if you noticed it, but the meditation yesterday was really deep and really wonderful, because now we have help from Steph. She was the one who gave Lee the script for the meditation yesterday, and it has been so helpful. I really felt the difference, and I had to ask Lee afterwards. And then I knew that Steph was the one who helped him to have like this kind of structure. So I really thank you, Steph, for doing that for us, because it helps with our dynamics and with our experience here in the room. Thank you very much for you taking the time to help us with it.
I thank you for saying that. I sent you that text, Steph, but I really had some guilt over that, forgetting to thank you right
Oh
away.
my God, stop.
I know. As I had it, I was like, this is ridiculous.
It is the least I could do for you, how much you do for us every day.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, it does make it easier, and I do appreciate it. And I think I've got all of my stuff together so I can read. So I'm going to go. Here we go. Lesson 45. God is the mind with which I think. Oh, boy. I don't know about you. That sounds pretty good to me. I'm just going to turn the music down a little bit. Somehow it keeps popping up there. Okay. Today's idea that God is the mind with which I speak holds the key to what your real thoughts are. Your real thoughts are nothing you think, just as nothing you think you see is related to vision in any way. If this is your first time hearing this book at all, you would be probably pretty confused by this statement, but this is one of those phrases that unlocks us in a good way. There's no relationship between what is real and what you think is real. Nothing that you think are your real thoughts resemble your real thoughts in any respect. Nothing that you think bears any resemblance to what vision will show you. You think with the mind of God. Therefore, you share your real thoughts with God as God shares his real thoughts with you. Real thoughts are the same thoughts because they are thought by the same mind. To share is to make alike, or to make one. Nor do the real thoughts you think with the mind of God leave your mind, because thoughts do not leave their source. Therefore, your real thoughts are in the mind of God, as you are in the mind of God. Your real thoughts are in your mind as well, where God is in your mind. As you are part of God's mind, so are your real thoughts part of God's mind. Where then are your real thoughts? Today, we will attempt to reach your real thoughts. We will have to look for them in your mind, because that's where they are. Your real thoughts must still be there in your mind, because they cannot have left their source, which is your shared mind with God. Your shared mind with God's mind. What is thought by the mind of God is eternal, being part of creation. Our 3 5-minute practice periods for today will take the same general form that we used in applying yesterday's idea, that God is the light in which I see. We will attempt to leave the unreal and seek the real. We will deny the world in favor of truth. We will not let the thoughts of the world hold us back. We will not let the beliefs of the world tell us what God would have us do is impossible. Instead, we will try to recognize that only what God would have us do is possible. We will also try to understand that only what God would have us do is what we want to do. And we'll also try and remember that we cannot fail in doing what God would have us do. There's every reason to feel confident that we will succeed today. It is the will of God. Begin the exercises for today by repeating the idea that God is the mind with which I think to yourself, closing your eyes as you do so. Then spend a fairly short period in thinking of a few relevant thoughts of your own, keeping the idea that God is the mind with which I think in mind. After you have added some 4 to 5 thoughts of your own to the idea, repeat that God is the mind with which I think again, and tell yourself gently, my real thoughts are in my mind. I would like to find my real thoughts. We're going to repeat that a couple of times. Then try to go past all the unreal thoughts that cover the truth in your mind and reach to the eternal. Under all senseless thoughts and mad ideas with which you've cluttered up your mind are the real thoughts that you thought with God in the beginning. These real thoughts are there in your mind now, completely unchanged. These real thoughts will always be in your mind, exactly as they always were in your mind from the beginning. All the senseless thoughts and mad ideas you have thought since your belief in separation will change. But the foundation on which thoughts rest, which are the real thoughts that you thought with God in the beginning, are wholly changeless. That's W-H-O-L-L-Y. But I bet they're also holy and changeless. These real thoughts are this foundation toward which the exercises for today are directed. Here is your mind joined with the mind of God. Here are your real thoughts, one with God's thoughts. For this kind of practice, only one thing is necessary. Approach the practice as you would an altar, dedicated in heaven to God the Father and God the Son, for such is the place you are trying to reach. You will probably be unable as yet to realize how high you're trying to go. Yet even with the little understanding you've already gained, you should be able to remind yourself that this is no idle game, but an exercise in holiness and an attempt to reach the kingdom of heaven. In the shorter exercise periods for today, try to remember how important it is to you to understand the holiness of the mind that thinks with God. Take a minute or two as you repeat the idea that God is in the mind with which I think throughout the day to appreciate your mind's holiness. Stand aside, however briefly, from all thoughts that are unworthy of God, whose host you are, and thank God for the thoughts God is thinking with you. And that is our reading today. And that is Dean's snort. All right, I'm going to get our meditation ready here. I'll be ready in a moment. If anybody wants to say anything or kind of was moved by what you heard,
Well, that's one of my favorite things to do is, as I see thoughts go through my mind, just say, would God be thinking this? Would the Son of God be thinking this? And then ask for the better way. And it works all the time. It's really cool.
But how can you tell the difference? That was one of my, I mean, I have been doing this so long. I mean, I started the Course in Miracles last year in May. So
Yeah,
I
so long.
still,
Sure.
I still have this kind of hesitation whenever I feel, well, this is something that God wants me to do or not. I mean, how can you tell?
Well, remember what I said was when I'm watching my thoughts, I ask, would God have a thought like this? It's usually identifying fearful or non-peaceful or other types of thoughts. So it's a little bit, I think, of a different topic, right? Because the Course says one of our main responsibilities is to identify fear and give it over for healing. That's kind of one of the only responsibilities the Course gives us. So I'm kind of talking about that. And if we're watching our minds and we feel less than joyful and less than peaceful, we can guarantee that it's not God. So that's maybe a start. But we could go further into your question if you want.
That's a
Yeah.
good start. I had the same question
No,
all along, trying to figure this one out.
no time like the present.
Yeah, but in the present, you have to take into consideration what you're gonna do next, and I mean, it's just that I'm having these hesitations about something that I know that probably it's a way of getting out of one situation, but it's just one of many solutions that the circumstance can have, and it's not the most easy way to do it, but it seems like it should be the one to take. So I'm hesitating if this is something I should do or not. Okay. I mean, I'm trying to figure that out in a higher level.
Sure.
How can you ask? I mean, have you ever asked a specific guidance in the level of the form?
Sure. Well, I'll give my quick answer. I don't want to monopolize the call this morning, but I'll give you my quick idea on that, and then we'll let others chime in. All right. As I was saying, our job, quote unquote, is to purify our minds, right? To undo the blocks to love, right? So that's our first and foremost responsibility. And as we do that, we should trust ourselves. So I'm going to give you a really simple answer to that one. Once you undo the blocks to love and you feel you've done the work, then you trust, what do I want to do? Right? So you don't have to look for an outside force, because remember, God's within you. Sometimes it's as simple as, well, I trust myself as a son of God. What do I want to do? And you usually want to do one thing more than the other. And if not, flip a coin.
That always works. Thank you, George.
Well, that works as long as there are only two choices. If there are 3, 4, 5 choices, then flipping a coin is just going to keep on rolling. There are some clues that we have, whether or not we are using the mind which God gives us, in a sense, to think with. And the best picture that I can offer on this is, first of all, let me say that it's very confusing when you first hear that everything you've ever thought about and every way in which you thought of anything has been wrong. And that's the impression that we get. And in a way it is, but it's not our fault. I like to use the idea, it's kind of like all of a sudden you're drinking milk, and you're drinking milk, drink a glass of milk, and you have been drinking from that same container milk. But today, for some reason, it tastes sour. It's gone bad, that's all. There's a difference, and you know the difference. When it's gone bad, that's sour milk. I don't want to drink that milk anymore. So if you compare that to thinking with the mind of God, you know whether or not you have thought accurately with what God is really thinking, or whether you have messed up the message that you are using from God to think with. Meaning, and this is pretty heavy stuff, but it's actually kind of simple also. If you're George said we have clues. If it's loving, if it's the kindest way you can think of doing something, if it's the nicest kind of person you can be by doing that, if it's helpful, if it's not degrading somebody else, all of the things that we know, the principles of life that we believe in, most people do, then you are thinking with the God of love, God lovingly. If, however, you're thinking about messing with someone else, um, abusing someone else, embarrassing someone else, if that's the outcome, then that's not a thought that is coming from God. It's not that difficult. The problem is not a problem. The solution is think about what you're thinking. And we have these lessons every day that in every case they teach us to reflect, to see what am I really thinking about? If my thoughts, if I have a choice of thoughts, one of them is going to be um, helpful, powerful, loving to the other person. If I carry that out, that choice, that's a good choice. If it's going to mess them up, but be really good for me, that may not be the best choice, but it may be the only way. You have to love yourself first, and then you want to be loving towards everybody else. With the thoughts we have in the beginning of this course, it's sometimes hard to discern whether or not that's loving on both sides. That's why
That's
it's
why it's
great
great
to.
to.
What happened to the sound?
No,
Okay,
don't worry, it was Sean, but I muted. I
all
muted.
right. It's just really helpful to air these out. George said something. We can each talk about whether or not a particular thought, you can run it by your best friend, kind of thing. Is this the right thing to do? But the idea here is to give time to think about what you're thinking. I have found in my experience and it started with 12-step groups. That's where I learned it. Is if I write it down, what I'm thinking, then I can consider what I've written down. But it's really hard to think about what I'm thinking while I'm thinking it. Eventually, that becomes easy. It's This is the most loving thing I can think of, and then it gets easier. I hope that
Ooh,
helped.
Bob, I just had a good idea. When you're writing something down like that, maybe the next thing we write down is what is it for, right? Because one of the things the course says to put everything to the test. What is it for? And if it's for, for love, for moving the atonement forward, for
Yep. Expansion of
doing something,
love.
right?
Really good, George. Yes.
Yeah. So what is it for, and is it truly helpful? So those are the two questions that I could remember. Maybe Tom or Bob could or Lee can remember more, or someone else. But
I
the tests I remember is what is it for, and is it truly helpful?
I
There's
have
also a
something
measure of
to.
happiness. There's the happiness measure. God wants us to be happy, and His thoughts bring about happiness, even if it seems like it's going to be a trial for a little bit. Ultimately, the idea is to bring happiness to the world.
Well, if
I
you
have a.
I'm
Oh,
sorry, I'm
silence
sorry.
gonna
the
moderate
mind,
a little bit. First goes Janine and then Tom, and then whoever wants to speak. So let's give his space to Janine and then Tom. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Adriana. I have a little acronym, um, and it's the Think one. You've probably heard of it before. It's THINK, and the T is it true? And then the H, is it helpful? And then the I, is it inspiring? And then the N, is it necessary? And the K is it kind? And I know for me, a lot of my stuff is really, it's kind of self-deprecating, internal talk. And for me, it shows up as a feeling. an emotion where I'm just I'm not happy. And I think the think acronym can be applied externally and internally. And I ask myself, why are you feeling, what is this thing that you're feeling about yourself? I actually did it this morning because I was feeling stagnant and I had some business things to do and I wasn't feeling capable. And I asked myself, well, why would you feel incapable? And I just kept going down the rabbit hole of thought, and it got down to unworthiness. And of course, I know I'm not unworthy because I am a child of God. I'm part of God. God is within me, and I that lifted my spirits, lifted my emotions. And it's when I'm not a good gatekeeper of my emotions, when I get to that emotional level, it's because I haven't been a good gatekeeper of my thoughts. And but that little acronym I actually came up at my spiritual center yesterday, so I just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Janine. That was very powerful, that acronym.
Yeah, I'd
Thank
never
you
heard
very
that one.
much.
That's awesome.
And the gatekeeper of your thoughts as well. So thanks for that sharing. I'm taking notes on your sharing. Tom, now it's your time. Thank you very much for waiting.
And then I'll lead us into a meditation.
But when you're silencing the mind, ask what would love have me do. Then listen. When you listen to the answer, you should ask, does this help restore my inner peace? Or ask the question, is is this an argument for my rightness, or is this a uh, desire? Will this move me towards happiness? Will this reduce my fear? So, ultimately, the Course says that when you ask, if you don't, or even when you silence your mind, the ego is going to answer first. So the ego is going to be arguing for your rightness. So the question is, will it help restore my inner peace? Once you've followed through and you've, made your decision, which is what we ultimately have to do, is we have to decide one way or the other. Uh, the creation cycle's not over. It shouldn't be over. You should look at the results and you should enter the feedback process. And during the feedback process, uh, you want to examine the results and say, did the results I get, did that uh, seem to move me and respond in a loving way, or did it not? And rather than beat yourself up over the result and how you responded, realize that the way you responded at that time was to try and minimize your fear. That might mean that you opted to argue for your rightness. That's okay. That's what you needed, or that's what you felt you had to do at that moment in time. If I would have had your same experiences, your same beliefs, your same thoughts, I would have responded exactly the same way and treat it as a learning lesson, and then just say, now, is that result what I want to continue to manifest in the future? If not, I have to take some type of different action. I have to modify my belief and realize that this is a learning process, and that's what we're here for. We're not here to place blame, shame, or guilt on ourselves or others, just to grow and learn and to continue to make mid-course corrections so that tomorrow, if that, or next year, next month, that same situation arises and we ask, what would love have me do? We'll be in better shape because of that past experience to be able to perhaps respond in a more loving way. So just don't get too hung up on beating yourself up over the decision that you ultimately follow. Just realize that that was a learning lesson, and that now, because of that experience, you may be able to respond more, quote unquote, lovingly in the future. So treat everything as a learning process as opposed to having to get some specific result, because whenever we look at it with that type of outcome, we tend to not enter the feedback process. We just say, did I get the results? Yes, no. And if no, I'm a failure. If not, rather than absorb the lesson, I just move on to the next thing. I think I won my prize. So treat everything as a learning lesson, and you'll be fine. But realize the ego tends to answer first. It's going to argue for its rightness. The question is, does that action tend to help me restore my inner peace or not? Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. That's fantastic. All right. I think it's about time for us to head into our meditation. All of a sudden, maybe not all of a sudden, but we're going to take our lesson of the day, that God is the mind with which I think. And we're going to have a short little meditation about that. I'm going to read some notes, and then I'm going to open it back up, and anybody can talk. Most of the talk is going on in Clubhouse. I'm streaming out to Facebook and Twitch and YouTube, and so there's comments coming in from all three right now, and I'll get to other people in a minute. Let's just start with this. Take a nice, deep, cleansing breath. Open up your diaphragm. Deep breath inside. Hold it for a moment. And then let it all out. Whoosh. Take another deep breath and hold it. These cleansing breaths really get our body prepared to hear the right message. Let it all out with a whoosh. One more deep, deep breath and hold it. Hold it for just a moment or two. Then let it all out. God is the mind with which I think. Close your eyes. Repeat this phrase to yourself. God is the mind with which I think. God is the mind with which I think. As thoughts come across your mind, apply that. God is the mind with which I think. Next time, as you repeat this to yourself, God is the mind with which I think, add some of your own thoughts to the idea. God is the mind with which I think. God is the mind with which I think. My real thoughts are in my mind. I would like to find my real, because God is the mind with which I think. Under all my senseless thoughts and mad ideas that have cluttered up my mind are the real thoughts that we thought with God in the beginning. These real thoughts are in your mind now, completely unchanged. These real thoughts will always be in your mind, exactly as they always were in your mind from the beginning. all the senseless thoughts and mad ideas you have thought, since your belief in separation will change. But the foundation on which thoughts rest, which are the real thoughts that you thought with God in the beginning, are wholly changeless. Another deep breath. Give thanks for these thoughts. God is in the mind with which I think. God is the mind with which I think. Let's open our eyes, ready to take on God's day on this beautiful Valentine's Day. It's cold up here, but clear and nice. Hope you guys are having nice weather wherever you're at. And now I'm going to read the notes for the lesson, number 45. God is the mind with which I think. Lesson 45 states that God is the mind with which I think. This lesson teaches us about real thoughts and the sharing of them. It tells us that thoughts of our egoic mind are not real thoughts. Real thoughts are shared with the mind of God. It states that God shares his real thoughts with us, and we share our real thoughts with God because they are thoughts from the same mind. It defines sharing as to make alike or to make one. It also says that thoughts do not leave their source. If the thoughts you're normally thinking are not real, what does this all mean? It's important to note that the mind is spelled with a capital M. You can see that if you're looking in the book, which is in the videos that I'm streaming out if you want to see those. Anytime you see the capitalization of a word that's not the first word in the sentence and not a proper noun, bells and whistles should go off. This capitalization signifies that ACIM is referring to the real world, or truth with a capital T, and not the world of perception. God is cause. We are God's effect. Two sides of one inseparable coin. A cause must first have an effect, and an effect must have a cause, or neither exists. The existence of both halves confirms the existence of the whole. Without both, the one self would not exist. Although an effect cannot change its cause, an effect can be a cause of its own effects that precede itself. A child can have children of its own, but cannot give birth to its own parent. This is a fundamental principle of the law of cause and effect. In a previous note, we discussed a syllogism as a tool in logic. A syllogism is a series of statements that lead to a logical conclusion. As long as all the statements are correct, the conclusion must also be correct. If any of the preceding statements or premises are false, the conclusion is probably wrong. In logic, once a false premise has been introduced, everything that follows it may be false. The mind with a capital M and real thoughts are what we share with God. These are all the thoughts that came before the introduction of any false beliefs about truth with a capital T. Once the idea of separation was raised to the level of a belief, a false premise had been introduced into the logic. There was now a line of demarcation between the guaranteed truth and the possible true or false thoughts that followed after the introduction of the erroneous premise or belief. The real mind only knows the truth, which is represented by real thoughts. The real mind only knows the truth, which is represented by real thoughts. With the split-minded, part of their mind knows and remembers the truth, while the other part has forgotten the truth and now believes that the false can be true and the truth can be false. This split mind is an effect of the erroneous thinking of the child, not the parent. The parent's mind remains whole and is not changed by the child's misperception. All thoughts that came before this belief in separation are real. They represent the truth, and they are part of the shared mind of God. All thoughts that follow the belief in separation cannot be assumed to be true, real, or part of the shared mind of God. The source of these non-real thoughts comes from the child's mind that believed itself to be separate. Since these secondary thoughts come from the child, which is an effect of God, these thoughts have no ability to change the mind of God. Since to share is to make alike or to make one, the only possible way for the split-minded to return to the mind of God is to drop their belief in separation. They must return to the point before this error in their thinking occurred. By dropping the thought system of the ego, your false thoughts of separation disappear, and only your real thoughts, which are your mind's true foundation, remain. Our minds return to the mind of God. That might sound different. As our mind returns to the mind of God, it's guaranteed because of our mind's return to the mind of God is guaranteed because God's foundation is wholly changeless. God never shared our ego's belief that we were anything other than as He created us, perfect, whole, and complete. Therefore, the only way to be made alike or to be made one is for the split-minded to return to the truth that it is the mind, the truth that is the mind of God. I didn't read that quite right. Therefore, the only way to be made alike or to be made one is for the split-minded to return to the truth that is the mind of God. That might be the most important paragraph Tom wrote in this book. Question: can you think of anything that you could share with another that would not require some type of sacrifice on your part?
Can you read that again, please?
I sure can. Here it comes. Can you think of anything that you could share with another that would not require some type of sacrifice on your part? Do you want to respond to that?
Well, it's love. It's love. That doesn't require any sacrifice from your part. But when you are not aligned with the truth, you seem to sacrifice everything in order for you to experience love. So that's why it's so hard to change your mind every time, right?
It's things that can be shared. You can't really share physical things from the standpoint that if I had a sandwich and I give you half, I have diminished my physicality, or the sandwich. You have only half a sandwich. You have the other. Together, we still have one sandwich. But as long as you're believing in this idea of separation, anytime we're dealing with physicality, there's some type of sacrifice in giving that up. I have less than what I started out with. It might be true that I exchange things, which is why in physicality we're always trying to seem like to play the game of let's make a deal. But thoughts can be shared without diminishment. So if I give thoughts of love, and if you accept that, actually, that tends to strengthen my belief in it. If you reject it, it doesn't really cause any loss because thoughts never leave the mind of uh, the source. The thought never leaves the source. You never lose that. So thoughts can be shared, which means that we can be making uh, love-based deposits into the bank of the world's collective consciousness if we want it, and there's no diminishment with that. So, the uh, I don't want to say the real answer is that thoughts, which are non-physical, can be shared without diminishment because uh, we never lose them. They say that thoughts never leave the mind of the beholder. So we can be loving and we can do that totally without any fear of any loss or sacrifice on our part. Thank you.
That reminds me of the flame, right? That the flame can light multiple other flames, right? And never loses of itself. And then every frame is like in one, right? So I like that.
Boy, oh boy, the blessings abound here today, guys. This is a really great little subject for me. I really appreciate the feedback. Really good.
Many years ago, on a Valentine's Day in our house, Susie and I decided to do it a little bit differently than we had done before. Um, when I was first married, I was still in the military with Susie, not with Susie, but I was first married to Susie, and there were a lot of guys there that weren't. They were stationed where I was, but that was not their home. So Susie made a whole bunch of lasagnas, anything that was with red, and had a bunch of the guys over, and it was all red food. Jello, I think we had, and so on and so on. And that was the way we shared Valentine's Day with other people. We were very much in love with each other, and we knew that, but we wanted to share it. Then something else happened. Well, I've been married 50 years, so there's a long range there. But about 15, 20 years ago, we had some people over to our house. They were women only, and I hired a guy who was part of a quartet, and they sang fabulous harmony. And they had this deal, and it was only on Valentine's Day, and I paid them a fee, and they came to our house, and they normally sing only 2 songs, and they were dressed in tuxedos, and one or two of them were quite handsome, and the 4 women who were there, who were either widows or divorced, but didn't have a current mate, they swooned. They just loved it. These guys in tuxedos sang to each of them and had eye-to-eye contact and walked around the dining room table. And they still talk about this. Every once in a while, they mention it. I remember when. And it was a really special experience. And one additional extra little gift, even for me, was that they ended up singing about 8 to 10 songs. And the reason they did was that the particular room, that dining room that I had designed, had very good acoustics for some reason. And they enjoyed the singing more than usual because it resonated so well. It was all a perfect experience. It was, in that sense, it was a miracle. And I hadn't even realized until just now that the first time we did it was with men, and the second time it was with women, and it had appropriate experiences in both cases. So it was very successful, and the sharing and loving are two words that are almost identical. And probably the only real difference is one is maybe a little bit more spiritual or a little bit more feeling wise than the other. It's all the same. We're moving in that direction, and clearly, to my mind, it was a sharing of God's thinking, of bringing together people in a loving atmosphere, something that keeps them knowing that there's something common between them. One was done with colors, the colors of the red heart representing love, the other with songs and special attention to each person. So I just share that for what it's worth. Thank you.
May I say good morning to the beautiful group? May miracles come your way this Valentine's Day, and thank you for that share. It's a miracle your dining room was so acoustically built so that that music was not only a gift to all those in the room, but even to the singers. Things that are unexpected. If you expect nothing at all, why sometimes it's just a gift. Isn't it beautiful? I wanted to bring something up, if you may. I'm not jumping ahead, Bob, even though I'm tempted. Instead, am I allowed to go back in this group or not? I don't know. I don't want to mess the rules up.
Well, we're kind of focusing on the lessons of the day, but if there's something that you feel
Well, it
is
felt pertinent
relevant,
for me to this lesson. It's the only reason why I bring it up.
sounds great.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed also, I think it's wonderful you're streaming and zooming all at the same time and helping with breathing. It's very beautiful, lovely. But I had wanted to bring up, in conjunction with today's lesson, just what was mentioned in lesson 43. I'll just read it slowly, not rapidly, but it won't
That
take much time.
that's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. No, thank you. The lesson, I'll read the initial title. It is God is my source. I cannot see apart from him. Capital H, capital A, all of it. Well, it's a title. Then we move on to that perception is not an attribute of God. In fact, his is the realm of knowledge. I'll skip some of what goes through, but it says he has created the Holy Spirit as the mediator between perception and knowledge. And without this link with God, perception would have replaced knowledge forever in your mind. This is the egoic mind we're speaking of. It is why I bring it up. And then I'll move on. It says, forgive me for having a moment here, but it says, in God you cannot see. Of course, we cannot see, but he's just there and we're it. But it says, perception has no function in God. That's the egoic mind. It has no function there. And it doesn't exist. But here's the part I would like to bring up for possible discussion or clarification for anyone, anywhere. Yet, in salvation, which is the undoing of what never was, perception has a mighty purpose, made by the Son of God for an unholy purpose. It must become the means for the restoration of the holiness to his awareness. Perception has no meaning. Yet does the Holy Spirit give it a meaning very close to God's? Healed perception becomes the means by which the Son of God forgives his brother and thus forgives himself. And that is simply all I'd like to add because it's A Course in Miracles. It's already perfection. Thank you all so much. This is Dr. Amy yielding our mic.
And Lee can't speak because he just burned his mouth with something he's eating right now. Thank you, Dr. Amy.
No,
And
thanks for the laugh. I'm sorry for your mouth. I know it hurts.
don't worry.
Yes,
Happy
we can all
Valentine's.
answer. Oh, thank
Valentine's
you. So
Day,
nice to
Dr.
see
Amy.
you. Happy Valentine's to all. Yeah, it's so obvious and so clear. And then I also went back to this. And Bob encouraged me, sure, go back. He says no one needs to practice to gain what already is. We're all tripped up practicing this, and it's quite simple, And we say it's simple, and then we get tripped up again.
Okay.
But yeah, no one needs to practice to gain what already is, and isn't that beautiful? That is the true gift. I think, lovely, you asked a question: what is shared? Freely. And of course, we know that's love. But Tom Wakechild, our beautiful, beloved friend, mentioned sharing of a sandwich with another. And when I do that, I don't feel like I'm giving anything up. Actually, I actually feel I'm just sustaining another person. But I can see where some people might think, well, if I share half of this, I might not have enough sustenance. When I think it was an important point for people in the egoic mind. Oh, wait a minute, I don't have my whole sandwich, it's given to another. That's the separation. But even in worldly things, I think the sharing of the thing is what makes it whole in our wholeness, our holiness. I wanted to bring that up because I thought so often how often I've shared food with people and never felt any sacrifice in any way. In fact, it only gave me the feeling of love back toward me. So, when the material world's involved, not just pure essence of God, I rarely feel that when I share something, when it's freely given by me and in grace, in love and gratitude for the love of another, simply because I'm with God and He loves me and I love Him. There's no other way to be. So I wanted to mention that because a lot of people are freaked out about sharing currency and this and that. And well, maybe that's a different thing, but in essence, it's really not. And that reminds me once again, what is the sacrifice we talked about earlier? The sacrifice, that's the what the author here wants us to eliminate from the mindset is that there is a concept of sacrifice, whatever that is. And that's all I'll add. These are just open, free thoughts that the Lord and A Course in Miracles and all of you have helped me to hold together and deliver in a way that I thought was useful.
Thank
And
you,
I'd
Dr.
like to
Amy.
thank you so much for the space.
Thank you, Dr. Amy. I
Thank you,
thought
Dr. A.
Michelle and George wanted to say something, but I couldn't see if it was George first then Michelle. So I guess I want to give them space to talk.
Oh, I forgot what I was going to say. But I do know while during the meditation, God was trying to redecorate my apartment. So I don't think that was God. He was I was getting decorating tips, but maybe it was. Who knows?
Yes, he's beautiful as well, so he can give you those tips as well.
But yeah, I think that what Dr. Amy's referring to, I guess the concept of sharing the sandwich that Tom was sharing, from a physical perspective, 1 + 1 = 2 and 2 - 1 = 1. But it's always how we deal with it mentally. So the thoughts from the Bible are coming to mind where Jesus says, if a brother asks for your coat, give him your coat. We're always showing that there is no lack, and we're not in need of holding on to that other side of the sandwich. So I think there's a little level clarity exercise there. What's happening in the physical is irrelevant. It's how you're dealing with it psychologically. So I think Dr. Amy was approaching the psychological, healthy perspective. Is I could certainly spare my, the other half of my sandwich without any loss, right? But the physical fact is still there's one sandwich, it's cut in half, and one half is given away. So in the physical and in the ego, that is sacrifice. But as a loving being, giving away half the sandwich could be love and no sacrifice. So it's always about our psychological state while we're doing things.
Okay, George.
But let's
In that case, as an architect, I will say
let's.
that you were
It's just
very
that.
busy.
Well,
Wait a minute, letting
it's
God redecorate your mind.
it's just that I wanted to give a space to Michelle as well, because if we don't give them like the order of their showing, we will miss their sharing, because they probably forget about what they wanted to talk.
Gee,
Happy
I would
Valentine's
never
Day,
interrupt
everybody.
Bob in my life, but good job.
I think I might have raised my hand on an accident. I'm just
Stupid
listening.
bitch.
So go ahead, Bob. Thank you. Hello, everybody.
Okay.
Blessings and love.
So, George, you're letting God redecorate your mind and moving things
Oh,
around. That's what you said you were thinking about. And I think that's wonderful. The idea of letting God redecorate your mind is to rearrange some of your thoughts, for me to rearrange some of my thoughts so that they all come out in a loving way. And this particular uh, lesson is to help me remember that the best stuff that I can work with in this room of mine, in this mind of mine, are loving thoughts, thoughts that leave a good legacy, learning thoughts, the things that there's a lot of L's here, and the biggest word is love. It's sticking with love, learning things, leaving a good legacy. All of these things are good, loving thoughts, and that's what we want to flood ourselves with, and also have them come out. That way, we share God's thoughts. That's the way I see this particular thing. Thank you.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you very much, Bob. And I'm sorry to interrupt you so many times. It's just that I wanted to moderate. And I still can, I still see the meaning on the lesson, but I have my mind still caught up with this idea of, yes, in a practical experience, how can you really know? I still have that kind of question in my mind, because yes, of course, everything that you can have in your mind, whether if it is hesitation or not, it's good. It will be good if you trust that God holds your space and holds everything around you, and you surrender the need of control. But in order for you to do something, to like make decisions in your level of the form, how can you really tell? I mean,
Well, maybe
I'm gonna
that's
speak. I'm gonna speak clearly here. I have to make a decision right now in my life that will have me like spend money and probably take a little bit of time, because the other way that seems to be the right way for me requires the agreement from the other person on going there. So in one path that is the easiest path, I need to have the other person in agreement in order for it to be like the best solution without that much time or that much effort. And the other way is me doing it by myself, with his consentment or not, and that will make me spend money and time. So how can I feel like at peace with the other way? Because I know
I
that
have
both
a
of them,
thought for you as
both
a
of
woman, if I may, later, only after others.
what? What I didn't understand that,
I
Dr.
said
Amy.
I had a thought for you as a woman on your topic, but only after others have offered you what they
Okay,
think,
thank you.
dear. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Amy. And so I can be at peace with whatever path I need to take, but I need to feel sure about it. That's how I'm hesitating about this, because I'm not sure if that other way that will require. I don't care if I have to spend money. It's just that I don't want to go in a path where I'm gonna find more conflict, because it's just, I don't know.
Well, I guess what's coming to mind to me is maybe either way is fine. You know, and sometimes we're not going to get direct, you know, orders from above, especially when it has to do with practical things, as you said. So sometimes we're depending on our own clear perceptions and our work that we've done, and to eliminate the fears from it. For example, I don't think you were saying this, but if there were fear parts to it, you could look at those parts and have the Holy Spirit neutralize them for you. So if the fear is spending money, let's say, and I'm not saying you said that, you can say, oh, is that fear? And then make those fear parts neutral. And then as you get rid of all the fear in the decision, just trust yourself and make a decision. But either one could be fine. There may not be a mistake, right?
Yeah, they both leads to the same conclusion, but it's just that I want to do it in the most highest way possible. And you just tap into a fear that I've been dealing with, like from last week to now, and it is a fear of spending money. So thank you very much, George, because that really makes sense. That's probably what is keeping me from doing this so freely, because I know that in both ways I will be okay,
There you
because
go.
I'm not doing it out of love. I mean, this comes from love, in fact. So it's probably the thing about fear of or lacking of money that it has been keeping me like hesitating about this. But thank you very much, George. It really enlightened the path for me. Thank you.
You're welcome. And just remember,
May I say?
sure, Dr. Amy, I
Wait,
have
wait, Louisa.
one sentence that reason always applies. So if you know the money is going to cause you know, it's factually, I don't have it, I'm going to have to put it on a 32% credit card, and it's going to cause me extra hassles, then you know, reason does apply here. But if it's just fear, then neutralize the fear, and you'll know what to do.
Totally, George. Thank you very much.
I'd just like to add something. I always resonate with you, dear Adriana and George. That was lovely. Also, thank you for the hilarity and the laughter earlier. That's a plus. Thank you. But Adriana, I know I think I can guess where you're going in between. Um, what is the greater sacrifice for you? Asking the other to share in your vision to fulfill it? Will that take a lot of work or syllogism in order to create cooperation, not manipulation or collusion, but cooperation? Or is it simply easier and less of a sacrifice to do it on your own? And that's how I would balance it out. And then I would take into account what you felt of your own accord. Thanks to George here, you might have a fear about the money. But wherein for you lies the greater sacrifice, and choose the one which is the least. Thank you, my dear.
Thank you, Dr. Amy. Hi, Luisa. You came back. How are you? Do you want to share something with us? You came in right in the moment that I was talking about the fear of spending money. How about that? And we were talking about it a few days ago, so
Yes.
came right in.
Hi. I had to go back because I mean to go out because I had a job interview and I
Ooh,
found just another client to teach yoga for children in school. So I'm happy
that's
celebrating
so
that.
amazing.
Yeah.
Congratulations, my friend. You're gonna do
Thank you.
great. Oh
Thank
my
you.
God, that's amazing.
I have now 3 schools where I'm going, and I am like becoming like the yoga teacher in the schools in Brussels. So I love that. But about
Great.
about money, remind me that I am the thoughts. I am the thoughts.
The
God
lesson,
is
no, the lesson is God is the mind with
mind. Yeah,
which I
which I
think.
think.
With
Yes.
which
So
I think.
yes.
And I was
So
talking about how can you tell the difference when you're
yeah,
thinking
I
with the
heard
mind of God. Yeah.
your question, and I the way I had this lesson this morning was like it was a huge revelation because it took me also to the beginning of the lessons where is nothing that what I see is it doesn't mean anything. So it's not my thoughts, but it's the origin of my thoughts, and that gives me such a peace because when it's my thoughts, um, the thoughts of separation, fear, anxiety, those are like not real. But when I understand that is the origin of my thought, like the house where my thoughts are born, the the origin of them, and that's God, then I am like, oh my God, I have such a creative power. And I am in such a state of pure love and connection and unity. And so that's one thing. And the other thing, I love the topic. That's one of the topics I work a lot with, and it's the relationship with money. For me, it's just and I was reading. I reread this morning the book of the 7 spiritual laws of success of Deepak Chopra, and he was I was remembering that, like, it's just a tool, it's just energy, it's just something that is going to help you to, I mean, to create more of what you are. It's not going to make you money will just enhance what you already are. So if you are a good person, it's going to help you to be a better person and to build a better world. So I love that topic. I really love that topic, and I do think that it is very related with spirituality, even when there is people who insist that when you are a spiritual person, you shouldn't be charging money. Well, I don't agree with that. So yeah, thank you. I'm done speaking. I'm going to
Thank you, my friend. I'm so
drive.
thrilled about the news you just gave me. And thank you very much because that insight of money enhances what you already are. It's so perfect because really, as by giving, you receive, then you shouldn't be afraid of spending in things that are really going to create a difference in your reality in order for you to move forward with your experience of love in this level of the form. So thank you very much because it really hit me as well as part of the healing process of this
I,
thought. Thank you.
It's
I'm not
also
a
Okay,
hitting
it's
me.
moderator,
Bob.
but
It's
Um,
Bob's turn, Doctor.
I just wanted.
Oh my God. I'm
all
sorry.
right, so
I'm sorry.
I would like to just add something here. Louisa, you really hit the nail on the head, because by saying what you said, the way you said it really resonated because you talked about something you were reading, Seven Spiritual Laws of Success by Deepak Chopra, which we all venerate him. Well, I happen to be reading from Stephen Covey this morning, which is the seven rules for being effective in life. And the first one is called First Things First. And the very first thing that he talks about is getting rid of your clock and using a compass instead. The idea being that if you're thinking about your clock, how fast is it going to be? How slow is it going to be? Or if you're thinking about time is money, then that is something that is not as important as your compass. The idea of each person's compass is their true north. What is it they want in life? What do they want to have? And will this move them in that direction of their personal feelings and type of universe in which they want to live, as opposed to the current type of universe in which they are living? The compass is the way out. The clock, all that does is keeps you running around in circles. So money and time both are useful to a degree, but they're not the method that we want to use. They're not necessarily the focus of our best intentions in order to come up with a decision of a choice. So if we want to choose our choice, let's use a compass instead of worrying about the cost of it. Well, the cost of the decision, and move in the direction of your highest good, the type of place in your mind where you want to be and where you think is the best chance for you to be loving. That would reflect God's basic thoughts, because that's what we're told God thinks about. God is all about love. Now, those are my.
Thank you, Dr. Amy. Thank you for waiting. It's just that I need to moderate like the
I
turns, and
understand
Bob
it's being
was, yeah,
zoomed.
sorry.
I understand completely. Forgive me. I had wanted to ask Bob because of what Louise said. Thank you for your share. A lot of people are wondering about that. I can't speak for myself, but I hear it often, and I wanted to ask Bob to bring around, or whomever it was who had said that, when Jesus says, if someone needs your coat, why give it freely? I believe that also applies to this situation. Whatever is given freely will always return to you. And so, also, when Bob mentioned the compass is more important than the measurement of any other thing, including time, well, it sounds cryptic, but it really isn't. And I'd like to thank you for that so much, Bob and Louisa, for bringing it up. It renders a lot of clarity for me for what I do voluntarily, often, but not to the place where I'm sacrificing myself anymore. I used to give it so much that I was just worn out, and now I give it quite freely, but without a sacrifice to my personage, like my health or any other thing. So glad you brought that up, and I wanted just to resonate there with each and every one. And thank you.
So everybody down, I'm just want to say hi, Michael, Marianne, Trisha, Charlotte, Sanas, Pablo. How great to see you here. If you want to come up and share something, please raise your hands. I have already sent some invitations, but if you missed that, just raise your hand and I will bring you up so we can share all things about this lesson that it's God is the mind with which I think. So I have been really finding my answers ever since the question raised in my was raised at the beginning. So I'm really appreciate all your inspiration, because it really hit me right now what I need to do and why I was hesitating about it. So thank you very much. Tom, you're back. Do you want? You missed that part. I kept asking, how can I tell the difference about this situation that I'm having, that I need to make a decision, but in order to have it done, I mean, I need to make a decision, and one of the paths that I could do, that I could follow, implies money and time. And I was hesitating about that, but then because of George and Luis's comments, I really could understood that I had still struggle with fear of spending money, So it's really related to all of our talks like the last few days. So there's a huge healing process there with my relationship with money that I thought it was like already seeing, and I was already in some good point of it, but now I know that I need to do a lot of mind work around it. So this is helpful for you to know because you started this kind of questioning within myself the other day that we were talking aside from the room. And I wanted to thank you. I wanted to get you on board now that you're back. So if anybody has anything else to share, you're more than welcome to share it. And if not, I guess that Lee has to go to take Dean or Grace to school. So what are the next
I would
steps
only
to
ask
go?
if anyone would be kind enough to read just the essence of the lesson before
Yeah,
we
that's what I'm trying
depart
to ask
on it,
Lee.
because I know he's
Sure.
children and
I
we
can
know.
definitely do it. That's all right. Grace
Okay,
is off
thank
to
you. I
school.
would love to hear it once again, especially your
Sure.
voice.
Happy to. No problem. Yep. Grace is off to school safe and sound. I'll leave with Dean in about 8 minutes and everything's just fine until the telephone call comes in. God is the mind with which I think. Today's idea holds the key to what your real thoughts are. They are nothing that you think, just as nothing that you see is related to vision in any way. There is no relationship between what is real and what you think is real. Nothing that you think represents your thoughts. Nothing you think represents your thoughts, resembles your real thoughts in any respect. Nothing that you think you see bears any resemblance to what vision will show you. You think with the mind of God. Therefore, you share your thoughts with Him. You think with the mind of God. Therefore, you share your thoughts with Him as He shares His with you. They are the same thoughts because they are thought by the same mind. To share is to make alike or to make one. Nor do the thoughts you think with the mind of God leave your mind because these thoughts, do not leave their source. Therefore, your thoughts are in the mind of God as you are. They are in your mind as well, where He is. As you are part of His mind, so are your thoughts, part of His thoughts. Where, then, are your real thoughts? Today we'll attempt to reach them. We will have to look for them in your mind because that is where they are. They must still be there because they cannot have left. What is thought by the mind of God is eternal, being a part of creation. Our three 5-minute practice periods for today will take the same general form that we used in applying yesterday's idea. We will attempt to leave the unreal and seek for the real. We will deny the world in favor of truth. We will not let the thoughts of the world hold us back. And we will not let the beliefs of the world tell us what God would have us do is impossible. Instead, we will try to recognize that only what God would have us do is possible. We will also try and understand that only what God would have us do is what we want to do. And we'll also try and remember that we cannot fail in doing what He would have us do. there's every reason to feel confident that you will succeed today. It's the will of God. Begin the exercises for today by repeating the idea to yourself. God is the mind with which I think. Closing your eyes as you do so. Spend a fairly short period in thinking a few relevant thoughts of your own, keeping the idea in mind as you do so. After you have added some 4 to 5 thoughts of your own, repeat the idea again and tell yourself gently, my real thoughts are in my mind. I would like to find them. Then try to go past all the unreal thoughts, which cover the truth in your mind, and reach to the eternal. Under all the senseless thoughts and mad ideas with which you have cluttered up your mind are the thoughts which you thought with God in the beginning. They are there in your mind, completely unchanged. They will always be in your mind exactly as they always were. Everything which you have thought since then will change, but the foundation on which they rest is wholly changeless. This is the foundation towards which the exercises for today are directed. Here is your mind joined with the mind of God. Here are your thoughts, one with His. For this kind of practice period, only one thing is necessary. Approach it as you would an altar dedicated in heaven itself to God the Father and God the Son. For such is the place you're trying to reach. You will probably be unable to, as yet, realize how high you are trying to go. Even with the little understanding you've already gained, you should be able to remind yourself that this is no idle game, but an exercise in holiness and an attempt to reach the kingdom of heaven. In using the shorter form of applying today's idea, try to remember how important it is to you to understand the holiness of the mind that thinks with God. Take a minute or two as you repeat the idea throughout the day to appreciate your mind's holiness. Stand aside, however briefly, from all thoughts that are unworthy of Him whose host you are, and thank Him for the thoughts He's thinking with you. That is today's lesson to take with you. We did one session this morning. If you missed it, take a minute, search your mind for 5 minutes, find those thoughts, and add them to God is the mind with which I think. And get one in before you go to bed tonight, and one in somewhere else before you give your sweetheart a kiss so that you can be in a loving place. And have a great Valentine's Day.
Merci, très bien, Lovely.
Have a great day.
Merci.
And
Happy
Adriana,
Valentine's.
if God wants you to do something, the means will be provided.
Oh my God, thank you, George. Yeah, I know that. I just wrote a person that needs to be uh, now called in order for me to do what I need to do. So thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Call
You
me,
are one
Adriana.
of the means. Yeah, I will.
Now. See you. Bye bye,
Okay.
everyone. Happy
Bye
day.
bye. Happy Valentine's
Happy
Day.
Valentine's Day.
And
Love to
it's
all of
beautiful
you.
to
Namaste.
hear the
Namaste.
French of Dr. Amy. Thank you. Janine, are
Ah
you
oui,
going to
c'est
say
très joli.
something?
I just said happy Valentine's Day. Love you. Love all of
We
you.
love you. We love you too.
Thanks for this today, everybody. This was a great session. I really, really appreciate it.
Peace.
And
Thanks,
blush.
guys. Have a good day. Happy Valentine's Day.
Bye bye, everybody.
Goodbye, beautiful
Goodbye.
ones. Bye bye.
It's all good. Happy Valentine's Day. Lots of love to everyone. Now I'm going to go be with my wife, my love. Talk to you all later. Bye.